Hey everyone. So today's video is really going to be quick and dirty and just meant to give you some context around the auger. The auger's here, but I'm still working on the final details of the cradle. And I'll give you all that information in the newsletter and some subsequent videos. But because I want to put this up on pre-order, I wanted to go ahead and give you some of the high-level context of the actual unit, so that you can decide if it's something that is a good fit for you. Now, for the most part, everything you've heard from me previously is still accurate, but some of it is under review. And one example is, I mentioned I'm on the path of doing a lightweight frame, and I wanted to come out here a little bit further to 60 inches. Well, when you make this, unless you make it asymmetrical, if you make it 60 inches, this thing gets a whole lot bigger and heavier, and you move out. You know, for most of us, 6 inches isn't as much as we thought. But that's what it looks like whenever it literally is to right here, so you could scoot this over just a bit, and you might get a little bit better line of sight. I'm not saying I'm not going to do a 60-inch holder, but I'm reevaluating that piece. The second part is the cradle. Now I'm not going to show you the details of this one because it's just a prototype I've hacked up, and then that's what I made my final drawing from. It is not at all complete, so no judgments on that, please. But this is final, and this is final, and I've got it stacked up here because I had been using this one. This is kind of your standard bit that if you went and rented, or if you bought it from Tractor Supply, this is what you would get. It's 48 inches long, top to tip, and it's just pretty much the standard for bits. And you'll be able to use this, but you're gonna have very limited mobility if you have a 1 series. If you've got bigger tractor, I've got this on the 2038 because I've got my 1 series tied up with some turbo fun. But if you have a bigger tractor, you can wield the longer one a little bit easier. And again, you can do it. I've had this one on my 1 series. The only nuance is if you came over and you wanted to, the hill was here and you were downhill of it, you might not be able to get that to work. So in order to solve for that, now on the Kubota, if you run this on a Kubota BX at least, you're probably, even with this, you're probably not going to have enough room. I'll have to test that, but it's going to be a little bit tight. It might work, but it's going to be very tight. You would not have room on this, I feel pretty confident. So from the ground here up to the pin is about 7. The way it's set up right now, it's pushing the ground just ever so slightly, so it's about 70 inches to the pin there. And you can actually tilt this up because you've got a little bit of room here. So there is some flexibility. I've got this pushed forward so that this is how you would typically use it. Most people would typically use it as kind of pushed all the way forward. And but you can curl this back and give a little bit more distance. So that's maybe why the BX could work with this, because you're only in a stock BX, you're talking 65, 66 probably, I think that's to the pin, but it's less even than the 1 series by 3 or 4 inches. This bit here that's going to come with it, first of all, as you can tell, it is about 1 inch bigger in diameter. This is 9 inch and this is 10 inch. And the reason for that, this 9 inch would probably go around here, but this will give you a little bit more clearance. And if you can see the difference in height, this is tip to here is 42 inches, to here is 48 inches. So there's about a 6-inch difference there. That's going to give you the flexibility on the 1 series to have that breathing room. And if you need to go deeper than the 3 feet, so you need to make a full 4-foot hole, you'll be able to bring it into the hole with it. So that's the nuances to the Auger, and why I think this is what I mentioned is the Goldilocks for at least the 1 series. The other thing, and we'll run it here in just a minute, is this is the smallest hydraulic planetary gear set that I know of. It has an Eaton motor, but it's even smaller than the ones that you might find at like any type of skid steer attachment outlet. They're going to have, their minimum's probably going to be 7 or 8. This was down to 6. And the important piece to that is just that you are able to get the full efficiency and the torque that I mentioned in the previous video. It's not so much speed. Speed's not that big of a deal with an auger. You can live with a lot less speed. But in order to get the full pressure torque running, you have to have enough fluid to seal everything up. And this is going to make it easier for the smaller tractors, even when you get into the ones with HydrosPlus. Now this is probably not going to run on a stock 1 series. This might run on a stock BX because they do produce at wide open throttle more hydraulic flow. I haven't tested it down to the 3.5 gallon per minute, but you'll see here in a minute. Well, this ground that I've got is not terribly hard, so I don't know if it's a good test. The lowest this tractor will go, the way I've got it set up, is almost 5 gallons a minute. So we'll run it at 5, and then we'll run it up to probably around 9 gallons a minute. That's what you'll get with HydrosPlus with this tractor, at least the ones on the market, and then that's close to what you'll get depending on your stage 2 or stage 3. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to switch these bits out. I just wanted to show you the difference, and I already had this one on, so I'm just going to hold it up for me. We'll dig a few holes, kind of show you how it works out, and then that'll be it for this video. But more to come, and the more to come is primarily going to be on the holder and the cradle. And remember, if you already have forks, or most of you already do, you only have to pay for the cradle. That's going to save you some money. Well, before I go, last thing I'll say, this is, this kind of works as a plumb bob in that it goes on this axis and the back and forth axis, and you can probably see, well, I may have it rested. No, it's not moving. I don't know if you can tell, but it is just ever so slightly off because the tractor's tilted just a bit, and right now it's pretty much straight up and down. So yeah, let me get the other bit on here, and we'll dig a couple holes, and I'll show you how it goes. Okay, I'm gonna stand over here to the side, mainly because I don't have any fancy camera equipment, and it's easier to see. If you're in this view here, you can definitely see it. Just for a video, it's not ideal. So as I mentioned before, this tractor at this RPM is close to 5 gallons per minute, about 4.5 to 5, and that's the speed you're going to get. The speed's fine. Whether you have the efficiency is going to be the question. We'll do some tests with that. It should run. I think it's rated technically for 6, which means it should run pretty close to 5 and be okay, maybe 5.5. But you can run it also up to about 14 gallons per minute. So that's going to be some of your smaller skid steers, depending on your RPM, as long as it's not some kind of high flow setup. So reversibility obviously is a big deal when we're getting into augers like this. Just overall efficiency. Clearly, you can do this with a PTO auger, but the risk of breaking something on your tractor seems to be pretty high, especially with the small tractors. And when that baby sucks itself down into some nice gumbo clay, you're gonna have some fun times getting it out. So with this now, and depending on the soil types you have, you may go in a few different ways. Now I have a button so I can make mine constant flow, so I don't have to do that. But what you would typically do, again, depending on the soil type, is go ahead and place it in the right spot, which I haven't done yet. And you almost let it pull itself down, but you don't want to necessarily float it, because if you float it, then it'll pull itself down, and you'll end up having to basically come back up. Depends on the soil type. It's not going to auger out the hole. It's just going to pull itself down more like a screw. So again, that's 4 gallons a minute. You can go ahead and get down into the hole a little bit further. Add some pressure if needed. Now, if you were driving the tractor, you'd probably pull yourself back just a hair, just to make sure that it goes like pulling itself down. Just make sure that it goes in as straight as you need it to. Now, depending on what you're doing, you may not need it to do that straight to start with. Depends on the size of the pole. But so there we are. We've augered ourselves down. We've got it pulled up. We've got a lot of dirt out of the hole. You can see it's super wet, so this is not necessarily the best test. And then you can curl it back here and get your dirt, hopefully, to fall off. One thing you can tell on the 2038 at least, the third function is last in line, and so as I start to curl, you'll see that the drill slow down. So that's the slow version. I see it slowed down there. We go back, man, it is muddy down there. So again, that's probably not, this is not the best place to do the test, but I wanted to show you all what we were in for here. Oh, there it is. We can go back down into the hole, grab a little bit more if necessary. Pull it up. Pull up the wet, muddy mess. No, I wouldn't recommend it being quite this muddy. So let me reposition. We'll get to a all-in-one. Even though I'm standing beside it, OSHA not approving of this, I'm sure. All right, here we go. So let's get reset. We're right there in that muddy spot. Probably good enough. Right, so let me jump up to, let's say, this is about 7. Hard to see from the side. It should be about 7 gallons a minute. So if you had a stage 2 on a 1 series, this would be about close to wide open throttle, or maybe even wide open throttle, depending on how you have it tuned. So you can see quite a bit more speed there. Let me just show you. This here would be about what you would see with a stage 3, pretty much wide open throttle, or roughly this tractor with HydrosPlus. Also, very similarly, if you have a 3R tractor, you're going to see it go that fast. So that's kind of what a lot of people would think of when you think of an auger, going roughly that fast, I think, but it doesn't have to go that fast. Let's go ahead and go into the hole here. We'll go ahead and go at the faster speed. Give it a little bit so it has a chance to pull the dirt out. I'll back up just a hair. Keep it straight. Now, if you want to get real aggressive, you just push it on down, right? And then you pick it up. Yeah. Sounds good. go for one more here. We'll back up. Do a little bit of leveling. Turn it on. Okay. I went too far. Myself off to the side. It'll be easier to monitor when you're not standing beside the tractor. Ooh, it is muddy. Alright, so I gotta do one more. So I botched that one. Going back into anything. I should try to find some slightly better ground, but you know. Pull back just a hair. Put on the auger. Pick up a tree. Found a root. Keep mine though. Ah, I messed it up. Look, I'm going to the side. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Alright, well, not exactly the best auger from the side. Oh yeah. Got time for one more, right? If you don't, just skip to the end. This is a good example, though, of you can see that the auger, like a plumb bob, is kind of straight up and down, but this is clearly not straight up and down. It's kicked off to the side here. And that's gonna, again, when you're digging a hole, if you need absolute 100% level of the earth, you're gonna have to go a little slower probably. But we're just digging holes for decks or fence posts and things like that. There are some fancy tools that'll help you how to be straight, but you know, eyeballing it, I think is probably good enough. Hang on. I'll try not to this time. Force it. Tree root probably didn't help. So I'm going to back up just a hair. Dig itself down. Do it on the tractor, it's a little easier. I'm not left-handed, so. Looks like it's a little drier. At this point, you might go ahead and put it in float. But if I float it down, you see it'll go ahead and start biting and pulling itself down. Come up slowly. Let it clean itself out. See what we got. I mean, of course there's water in the bottom, but right there's about a 3-foot hole. Now water is actively running into that. This is actually below the floodplain, so it's been really wet, and part of the reason I want to make this video quickly is because of the rain. Oh, don't fall. But I don't know if you heard that. It's like somebody jumped in the pool. There you go. That's the HydrosPlus Auger Plus. Let me get it down here. I suspect, so I'm going to put it on pre-sale here very soon, and obviously if you're seeing this later, it won't matter to you, but I'll put it on pre-sale pretty soon. What I've got left to do is finalize this piece. There's a good chance it's going to come with, it's going to ship with, for people who just get the cradle, ship a little bit faster than this, because we got to get those final cut. My partner that has the laser machine, it went down last week, so I was expecting to have them by now. So it's down, supposedly going to be fixed by Monday. We'll get these cut out, welded to powder coat, and then boom, they'll be ready to ship. I won't give any price details here, but I'll give that in the newsletter. But if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me, Kevin@HydrosPlus.com. Thanks for watching. Comments, leave them below.